Thank you for joining the Compass Sherpa administration video on the control panel. The control panel is where you can set user settings and do many other things. You'll go up to administration and go up to control panel, and you'll see a screen like this. You can set password options so users can change their password or allow users to reset their old password. You can also force a password change at any time by clicking this button. Your lists that you have in the drop-down are stored here, and you can add or edit any of these. You have equipment vendors, so this is what you would see in the TCO as far as competitive vendors. In all of these, you'll see an add, edit, and delete button. Click add and type in, or highlight and hit edit. Or you can delete these at any time by hitting the delete button. You also have challenges, and these can be used in the proposal generation area in the executive summary, which can be manually typed in. However, they can choose from predefined challenges. You can also do the same thing with objectives. You have equipment types, which is going to be the equipment types that come into the TCO area. Typically, you would have printers, MFPs, outsourcing, and possibly wide formats. You also have buyer's modes. So when you are creating a contact, you can put in the buyer's mode. So where are they as far as buying in the sales cycle? You have job titles. So this goes with contacts. What are their job titles? Again, this is a free type field for the reps to use. However, if you want to keep a standardization, you can type them in there and they can pick from the drop-down list. You also have your account classifications. These are the checkboxes in the account screen. So these are the checkboxes that they can classify their account by. There are two that you cannot take out. One of them is color client, and one of them is delete company, because this is how the user will mark the client as a current client or alert the administrator that they would like the account deleted. You have number of employees. So again, this is another way to classify the account as far as the size of the account and how many employees that they have. You have the configurator volume. Now, of course, the person configuring the equipment can put in whatever volume they would like. However, this is what they will see in the drop-down. So it's more of a convenience purposes. You have the TCO default ratio. And this is when you're doing a TCO and doing a print assessment, what it will default for mono and color. I have mine set at 10% for mono and 25% for color. And then you can see that the manufacturer is setting it at 5 and 15. And of course, this is going to affect the cost of the total TCO. And then we have opportunity status. So the defaults are close, lost, and forecast. You don't want to remove these, but you can add to it. One popular one is called no buy. We didn't close it. We didn't lose it. I don't want it forecasted. They just decided not to buy anything from anyone. And you have your SIC codes, which are pretty standard. The code really doesn't matter. It's really about the description, which will come as a default in your database. But if you do want to add, edit, or delete any of these, just use those buttons. You have activity categories. So these are the options that a rep can choose from when they're completing an activity. These are by default because they're system generated activities, but of course you can add additional ones as well. Maybe you want to add net new appointment or a new phone call, for example. You can certainly add to this, and just like the other areas within the system, there's an add, a delete, and you can also change the sort order. So if you don't want it to show alphabetically, you can change the order of these as well. You have your close percentage. So this is when you are forecasting through financials or through the opportunities tab, how likely you are to close this deal. Once they mark it as closed, it will automatically go to 100. But it is up to the rep to choose the likelihood of that deal closing. You also have contact rank. So again, this goes back to the contacts. So when you're adding new contacts or editing existing contacts within the accounts tab, you can rank them. You have your sales stages. So when you're in sales stages and looking at the pipeline and the big picture overview, these are the stages that they will see. You can add up to 20 of them. Forecast, closed, and removed from funnel are automatically going to be in there because these are automatically generated forecasts. When you forecast something from financials, it puts it in forecast. When you close something in opportunities, it marks it as a closed sale. Or in opportunities, when you choose to remove it from the funnel, it removes it from the funnel. Everything else is totally editable by you. You have your lease end days, and this has to do with Lease Tracker. So if you are currently using Lease Tracker, this is how many days in advance the user will get a notification that a lease expiration is coming up. Under months is the length of the lease term. The days are the amount of days that they will be reminded in advance. You have manufacturers. This goes to the printer pricer area. If you're doing MPS and you are using printer pricer, these are the manufacturers that your import will match up with. And then you have your activity quick notes. So instead of typing in the comments when you are completing an activity, is there something that you see commonly? Left voicemail, left business card, dropped off marketing material. You can put that in there. It saves the user from having to type it out, and then they can just pick from the drop-down list. Down here towards the bottom, you'll see some blue buttons. If you're on FM Audit and you're using FM Audit Central, you will want to put in your API URL and enter your password in there. You also have app settings, and what this allows you to do is set decimal place precisions. So when you're pricing out most commonly an MPS deal and it rounds to a certain decimal place, instead of having 6 decimal places, you can have it do it to, say, 3 or 5. And that can be done in the program. It can also be changed in bookmarks, which is the templates that you will populate from the system. And then you have account classification permissions. If you want to lock down permissions for any account classifications, say you don't want a user to be able to mark a prospect as a current customer or something else, you can turn that off, and only an administrator is going to be able to make those changes. Here in the middle, you're going to see some checkboxes. So these are global settings. You can allow users to update the program, which you will want to do. We send out frequent updates, and you will want them to be able to run those updates. Also, display program update at startup. That means when they first log in, if there's an update available, they will see this flashing, and they know to click on it and then receive the updates for any enhancements that we've made. If you have discontinued items in item pricing, you can allow them to see those, or you can hide them, keep them in item pricing, but still keep the equipment in there. Also, allowing deletion of activities, emails, proposals, and forecasts. This will turn on or off the red X delete button for users. Managers and above will still have the ability to delete in these areas. If you are one company without several subsidiaries that use different pricing and sell different types of equipment and have different service and lease rates, you will want these 3 checked. If not, you will set them up separately in different regions in each of these areas. And the same thing goes for use one list for printers, but this has to do with the MPS price book. So if there's different printers that you can do MPS on in one division of your company versus another, you would want this unchecked. Otherwise, everybody will see everything. You can also force a follow-up activity. What this will do is anytime a user completes an activity, they are forced to create a follow-up before they can complete that activity. If this is unchecked, then they can complete that activity without scheduling a follow-up. Locking down completed activities means that once anyone completes an activity, they cannot go back and change notes, dates, times, or anything like that. It is a completed activity and it is now in the system. You can also deny backdating activities, which means I can't complete an activity today and put it in tomorrow and say I did it today. So it automatically defaults to the current day that the activity was put in. You can also hide unauthorized users. So if anyone's trying to add an additional user to a customer's profile or an additional rep, it will hide those from the list. Your percentage of forecasted for the revenue graph, this goes back to the home page. This will show, in this example, anything that's forecasted at 10% and higher in my graph. The days prior to lease expiration, this doesn't have anything to do with the lease tracker like we looked at down here. This actually is going to be more for competitive equipment that users are putting into the TCO. So this is how many days prior to the lease expiration that they've identified that they will get an automatic reminder to contact that customer. The days to keep the company name in the dropdown, this has to do with the dropdown, the quick pick that you have on your account screen. This, in this example, will show any account records I've been in the last 7 days. And then you have your TCO labor and parts margin. So what this does is it pulls from the labor and parts margin table that you have set in the administrator printer pricer, and it adds 20% to what your cost is, assuming that they are paying over what your cost would be. You also have some override passwords here. The manager override password, that is for item pricing. So when you're pricing out hardware and equipment, if you want to change the service rate, this manager override password is needed. If you lock your templates, which is not likely, but if you do, whether it be Excel or Word when you populate your proposals, if you have those templates locked, in order for Compass to populate those templates, it needs to unlock them, populate it, and it will relock them so that the user cannot make any other changes to that template. You have your Outlook export permissions. This is if you want to export any contacts and contact information to Outlook. And this can be set to nobody, up to just the administrators, or just the order processor, and any permission in between. The printer pricer override password is similar to the manager override password here, except this reflects in the printer pricer tab. So if you're pricing out an MPS deal and you're taking over printers and it brings in the cost per page, it will not allow the user to change that cost per page without a password. The activity creation default rep, this has to do with Lease Tracker. So Lease Tracker will send automatic reminders based off of this scale. And if there's nobody assigned to that account, or if there's multiple people assigned to that account, this is who it will go to, the reminder. This is typically set to a sales manager or an administrator. If you have multiple regions, you'll see those here. You can add to your regions by clicking Add New Region. You can delete a region by highlighting it and hit Delete. I'm just going to cancel out of that. You can also transfer regions. So if you want to transfer regions from, say, a specific city is now assigned to a different region, or zip code, for example, I could transfer that there. All right. Now moving on to the ERP tab. So this has to do with whether you're using eAutomate, OMD, NextGen on occasion. This is something that most likely your IT person would set up, your server information, the database information, username, password. The Compass ERP is the ERP number in whatever ERP system you're using. Again, eAutomate, OMD, that's the ERP number of the Compass account that's in there. And this is important if you're submitting orders to your ERP system. There needs to be a Compass account set up in there, and that Compass ERP number needs to be set there. You can also import companies from, right now I'm in eAutomate, but this also works for OMD. If you have new companies that are entered into your ERP system that are not currently in Compass, what it'll do is it will search your ERP system, and if it does not find a matching ERP number on that account in the Accounts tab, it will give you a list, and you can choose to import those. You also have sales zones, so there's a couple different ways to set up territories. One of them is strictly just by zip codes, and one is by sales zones. So you can have multiple zones that contain multiple zip codes. What's convenient about this is that instead of transferring and typing in a bunch of zip codes from one rep to another, if you have territory changes, you can just transfer an entire zone. If you're using order processing, this is where you can make any changes and set that up. So the first one is edit lists. And I have my delivery types. And you can add to this, you can take away. These are just the defaults. I have my invoicing type, my lease company information, so that can automatically populate onto the paperwork as well. It just makes processing the order and filling out that Excel doc that you use to process the order a whole lot easier. You have maintenance type, so this is going to be for your service contracts, how we're going to get the meters, pickup, are we doing any pickups, the sale type. So for commission purposes, is this an addition, new customer, or an upgrade? And then you also have the transaction type. Is it cash? Is it a lease? And you can set required fields. So when you're in order processing and the rep is processing the order to submit, you can set required fields. Those will be red. They'll be highlighted so they know they can't skip over those. And by checking the box, you're making those required. And you have your stages. So this has to do with the sales stages. In sales stages, you can have up to 20, and you can call them whatever you'd like. However, keep in mind that pending close comes straight from any time somebody forecasts. Also, orders queue. This is just something that's been submitted and not moved through the pipeline. But the rest of these, you can call whatever you'd like. You can set alert emails. This will send an email to whoever you'd like in your organization, whenever that order hits that stage. And you can also choose to include the user and the manager. So if I want to know when the lease funding happens, I can check that, and the user and the manager will both be notified by email. In the submit area, you will list the names of people who are allowed to submit deals into the system. You'll put their username, their email, their manager's email. You can also add an additional email, as well as 2 or 3 emails. And then you'll put a path. If you are using document storage, the path is not necessary because it will go into your document storage system. However, if it is going to your local server, then you will want to put the path in which is shared and have that path set. You can, again, delete users from here. You can add, you can edit, or you can do a bulk file path change. So if you have one standard path that everyone goes to, you will want that to be set for everybody, say on your server or something like that. Under Submit Docs, you'll put any documents that you want to be submitted through order processing. So if you just have one order processing document, you'll just see one in the drop down here. But you can add other documents if you have a different movement form or other documents that you want them to submit separately from the entire document, then you can set those up as well. Just give it a name, show where that path is coming from, so the location, most likely on your network, and then you're going to choose what path you want it to go to. Under movement forms, you can show the movement form option either in the financials or order processing. If you're not using movement forms, just keep it at financials. If you are using movement forms and want to show it in the financials tab, then use this. If you are using movement forms and want to show it through order processing and have them submit forms right from there, their movement forms, you can choose order processing. Thank you for joining our video today on the Administrator Control Panel. If you have any questions, please contact Compass at training@compasscontact.net.